So, hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Outmarket.pro podcast. I'm your host, Mark Stein. On this podcast, I interview small business owners and other professionals to talk about their experiences, passions, and industry insights. Today, I'm really enthused to have Elyse Howard with me. Elyse is a licensed massage therapist, medical massage practitioner, personal trainer, and certified pain practitioner. Woo! With a total of 13 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She's also the owner of MassageNERD Integrative Health in St. Petersburg, Florida. Through MassageNERD, Elyse serves the local community by helping re-educate them about the balance of conventional and functional medical practices. Welcome to the Outmarket.pro podcast, Elyse.
Thank you, Mark, for having me.
Great. So let's start at the beginning of your journey in health and wellness. Sounds like it goes back pretty far, but talk about what led you to become passionate, I'm assuming, but with that resume, I know you're passionate, but talk about the origin of the passion of your practice.
So the origin always starts with home, right? Usually we have something in our childhood that we've seen, something we've experienced that just you want to deep dive into some answers. And my mother is my why. She was fully disabled pretty much the majority of my life, my childhood, and into her passing 12 years ago. And she was repeatedly going to the doctors and she had doctor's appointments month after month. She was disabled, so she had median nerve damage in her right arm. So she would lose control, drop things. She had a severe car accident in 1982 that caused her to have over 62 stitches in her skull. They thought she would not live after that accident. They told her she'd never walk again after that accident. And she definitely did. She lived through it and she walked afterwards. And she had two children, myself and my sister. And so growing up with those stories and growing up watching her in pain, it didn't add up. The time that was going to the doctors, the prescriptions that were being prescribed, and the lack of results, the lack of not being in pain. She was still in pain her entire life, my entire existence. And so that just, the math wasn't mathing for me, Mark. So I wanted some answers.
And so talk about your journey of exploration and what you found.
So I had began school in 2009 for massage. And I had gotten into it open-minded because, we really don't know, right? We've been educated. I spoke with a lot of physicians, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and I decided massage therapy because it's much more manual. You're one-on-one. There's a different holistic route that's approached. And we also work with individuals' livelihoods, right? We help people find the actual job that's good for them or the career path that's good for them. And you're asking questions about the entire person. It's the entirety for me, right? So what we're able to do with that is find your daily habits, activities of daily living, and basically put a plan together for that individual. Getting into massage, the best experience and the best teacher that ended up for me was getting into a motor vehicle accident myself in 2013. I had two vehicles rear end me. I was stopped at a stoplight and they weren't paying attention. It was a husband and a wife in opposite vehicles. We were leaving a high school graduation. And unfortunately, they hit us. And we went to the hospital. And, a few weeks later, you get the MRIs. I ended up with 7 disc herniations, 3 cervical, 4 lumbar. I had a slap tear in my labrum in my left shoulder. And at that time, they also found osteoarthritis in my spine and bone spurs in my spine. So that was a lot to take in. And I was already in that field. So being in that field, I understood that a lot could be done, but I also listened to the physicians of, okay, you need to stop working out. You need to stop doing certain things. And so I listened. And instead of keeping a very good balance of body movement and rehabilitation, I stopped my working out and I only did the rehabilitation that was put forth. And I had found in my own rehabilitation that there's a very big gap that's missing between functional medicine and conventional medicine, and the gap in between of us healing ourselves, us having regulations of diet, exercise, and things that are just mandatory to have blood flow to certain areas to help the body heal. So that was the biggest teacher of all, was rehabilitating myself. So when people hear about 7 herniations and tears, they think surgery. I was advised to get surgery. However, I declined. And I am in the best shape of my life now. I ended up gaining almost 100 pounds at that time. I ended up being 230 pounds. Injury, depression got into my head. You're still working, but it's like autopilot. So I became the patient while I was practicing, and just had to really understand that if I'm going to be a practitioner, I have to practice what I preach. So I decided to just rewrite a curriculum and get into body work, nutrition, nutritional supplementation, diet, and staying very, very, very consistent. At that time, I also had cancer, cervical cancer, and I was the 5th generation in my family to have cancer. So they were very adamant with me having chemo and radiation. And I declined that as well and just went on a very holistic route. And here we are, January will be 7 years cancer free. And I'm in the best shape of my life. So I guess me being a patient led me on the journey of where we're at now, and beginning opening MassageNERD is we look to help the community empower themselves instead of be afraid.
What type of cancer did you have?
I had cervical cancer.
Cervical?
Correct.
Okay.
Stage 3, it was.
Wow.
7 years cancer free.
Wow.
My mother died of lung cancer. My grandmother died of breast cancer when my mother was 1. And my great-grandmother died of brain cancer. So there's a long lineage of cancers in our genetic code.
Did you gain all that weight because you stopped your workouts, your regular workouts, and you were only doing the physical therapy that they were prescribing? Is that
Correct.
what that was?
That, and I just became undisciplined. I, just like you had said, sometimes we isolate, and I was in pain and unhappy, and they told me I couldn't work out. I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai kickboxing 2-3 times a week, and in the gym the other 4 days. And when they tell you you can't do that, you have permanent nerve damage. I also had bilateral carpal tunnel, and a double crush, which means you have nerve impingements in your neck and in your wrists. And with being a massage therapist, that became a problem. So yes, it was from the accident, but it was also for my own regard. I wasn't disciplined enough to stay consistent. So it was a very good learning experience.
Okay, so it reminds me of a TED Talk that actually is the most popular TED Talk, and I really would urge it to you. I think you'll be interested from lots of different angles. It's called My Stroke of Insight, and it's a woman brain researcher from Indiana who was focusing on stroke research, and she had a stroke, and she observed her stroke from the inside as much as she could, and then lived to tell about it. So just look up My Stroke of Insight TED Talks. And she learned so much. It's a really powerful TED Talk, including spirituality and science. So I think you'll really like it, and the audience will too.
Very
But
nice.
so you observed your dilemma and healed yourself to teach yourself what you needed and the protocols that you needed to be able to help others.
Yes.
That's a recurring theme, healing ourselves, teaching ourselves to be able to teach others. We've got such a problem still with painkillers, oxy. We've got pain medication addictions. The big court case was reversed just recently, the Sackler family. Talk about where you have landed at this point in time, and I'm sure it evolves, about this dichotomy between traditional medicine, which is a medical model, a drug model, and holistic integrative medicine. Where do you fall? And it's difficult sometimes to know and to trust a particular path or to find a middle path. Talk about where you are a little bit about that dichotomy.
Well, thank you for speaking on that, because yes, it's very difficult for individuals to have that trust. We have been led to trust our authority figures, which are our doctors, our physicians, our surgeons, and which we should, because they have profound medical licenses and have taken medical oaths to do no harm and to do best by their patients, right? And I work with physicians every day, and it's beautiful the knowledge that we have on allopathic conventional medicine. However, I wouldn't say I fall on one or the other. That's why we like the integrative, right? We like to combine, because so many people try to separate, and we need it all. There are these extenuating circumstances where we have someone that's 300 pounds and obese, and they have high blood sugar, and they have diabetes that is raging. However, are we going to fully take them off all of their medications? No, but what we will do is have them change their diet and change their consistently of sleeping and processed foods. We'll get them on a whole foods diet. So it's not so much as one or the other. It's very much the integrative, because I personally, I know very well how addictive medications can be, but I also know very well how damaging synthetics are for our bodies. We are organic compounds. We're made of oxygen, molecular hydrogen, magnesium, phosphorus, etc. We are elements. So when we put these synthetic petroleum-based medications into our bodies, that then now it does have controlling effects towards we can feel better. However, there are many side effects and toxins that are now in the body and in the liver and in the tissues. This is not just one organ. We are very systemic beings. Our bodies are very systemic. So we can be told that we can take one thing and it'll affect one thing. However, that is not accurate. We take one thing and it affects everything.
And then we get medicine prescribed to take care of that symptom that was created by the last medicine.
Correct. And that is
the epitome of that was when I saw a commercial on TV about a medication to help you with dry eyes and if you cannot produce tears. So that condition is probably created by some medication that dries people out. So now we need a medication to get tears again.
And it's very sad. And I see it every day. I have a patient and she has EDS, which is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's very rare. However, they're born with a missing Y chromosome for connective tissue. So they dislocate very easily. They have a lot of tissue instability, connective tissue instability, and usually they're magnesium deficient. But in a regular setting for doctors, they're going to put them on many medications. And all of those medications are leaching magnesium, calcium, phosphorus, all these vital minerals out of those bones. I've seen it firsthand, this patient in particular, where because of the work that she does, she's getting into this claw hand. So the hands are moving in, right? Because it's constant repetitive motion. And nobody educated her on reversing and opening. So she just had to have a surgery to have a bone removed from her hand because of her EDS. But the surgeon went in and had to use completely different cadavers than what they were intending, because her tissue and her bone was like, in his words, paper towel. It was just falling apart. And he didn't have answers for that, and she didn't either. So she brings it back to me and she says, well, what do you think about this? And I said, unfortunately, I hear this and I see this quite often, especially with individuals that are on medications for years, much less decades. And not only, and people get this very misconstrued. I'm not telling you to go quit all of your medications. However, if we're going to be putting synthetics into our bodies, you need to be very aware of the minerals you need to be balancing to be putting into your bodies on a consistent basis. If you're going to be taking those medications, you need to be mindful and aware of what they're taking out of your body, out of your tissues, out of your cells, out of your structure, and what we need to put in be able to help that balance. But yes, you're absolutely right. We see it all the time.
So what, this is so all encompassing, and you're focused on nutrition, you're focused on massage, you're focused on the totality of the issue, pain management. I'm sure that your focus is very diverse. What issue is your top of mind issue right now? What's your focus? What are you seeing? What are you most concerned about? Give us your best stump speech based on what you're experiencing with your patients or clients in this moment.
Biggest concern, their quality of life. Their quality of life, their quality of health. The fact that majority of people know what it takes to get healthier, but the medical professionals that they trust don't educate on holistic well-being because they are not educated on it. They're educated for long-term treatment. They're educated to diagnose and to treat, which is their education, and they do it very well. However, when we're looking for health, vitality, longevity, where you actually wake up in the morning and feel good, not very many people have that these days. People are living in fear because they don't understand how simple our health can be. And people are looking and trusting avenues that have been proven that are failing. So yes, massage therapist and health and wellness for 13 years, but our entire goal is for entire transformation, to empower the individual to understand that not only everything that we eat, drink, and speak affects our cellular functionality, the thoughts that we have in our minds send off chemical reactions inside of our bodies. So I would say the forefront is we're focusing on the things that we shouldn't be focusing on, putting time, energy, and effort. And the things that we do need to be focusing on are the turn of the cheek and are mocked.
And our lifestyles these days are so fast, and we're not, I'm not going to say we're not able to focus on the fundamentals, but we're choosing not to. A healthy diet, even if it's relatively healthy and not just junk all the time, exercise, some sort of relaxation, meditation. Um, is it a lack of discipline, self-discipline, and an inability to stay focused on fundamentals? Is that it? And we're distracting ourselves with media, um, alcohol, all sorts of activities.
Mhm.
Is that it?
I mean, there's definitely a needle, right? And the nail. Boom. However, discipline is a key factor, and we cannot make change without discipline. But it's our little habits. And so many people, we beat ourselves up. That's why I say I was the patient in it. I was that person that was making promises to myself. You're going to go to the gym today. You're not going to have, a cheesesteak. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And then, boom, you don't go to the gym and you beat yourself up. And we get into these mental, so much of this is mental. So much of this is our internal workings of how do we begin our day? Just like you said, we can meditate. We can take 2 minutes to make a difference and not just rush into the world of social media and everyone's opinions and what everyone else is doing. Little habits make phenomenal changes. Our patients that are 300-400 pounds and that have lost hundreds of pounds, I start them with 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes out of your day. Give me 5 minutes where I'm going to tell you 5 different exercises that you're going to do for 1 minute each in your kitchen while you're waiting for your coffee to brew in the morning. Give me that 5 minutes to give me 5 things that you're grateful for in your life that you thank God that you have, that you're grateful for, right? Because we get outside of those things. We get outside of the little habits that add up to big results.
And let's just take one of them, exercise. It does not take long to get addicted to that feeling. If I'm in the gym or walking or something every day, and if I go 2 days without it, my leg muscles just start screaming at me. So it really doesn't take long. I would say maybe a week to get, well, I don't know. It depends on what kind of shape you're in, but
Shape and
for that
mentality.
For that addiction to come in, but it does take some discipline up front.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Discipline, and where is your motivation coming from? Because people don't make change. We all don't make changes unless we're forced to make changes, right? We don't want to change. We don't think that we feel bad until we feel bad. The supplementation that I sell out of our center, I had no idea I needed it. I thought I felt great. I eat really well. I'm focused. We pay attention. We do clean things, intermittent fasting. And I didn't know how good I could feel until I started putting the building blocks into my body that I needed to have. I loved it when you notice that you go 2 days without walking, you feel it. And instead of it being a negative connotation in your mind, like, oh, the exercise is harming me, now my legs hurt, you have that positive forward thinking mindset of, oh, my muscles are used to this. They need that blood flow. They need that stimuli. I must go do this. And the endorphins that you release. And so just for an example, right? A muscle contraction used to be defined as muscle that when it contracts, it moves 2 parts. That's not a big deal, right? We don't think that's a big deal. You read that, and a scientist or an average Joe will be like, well, that's not a big deal. What's so important about muscle then? However, now the definition for muscle contraction is where 1 point of stimuli is contracted. And as that contraction happens, myokines are released, which is a form of proteins, and that is distributed throughout the body and goes directly to the brain and can have depression reducing effects. We are now understanding that muscle is our organ for longevity, that we have been too focused on starving the fat and not focused enough on feeding and building the muscle. Because muscle isn't just biceps and triceps and quads. We have smooth muscle that are our organs, and we must feed them with the fuel that runs them. So not only if we are protein deficient, magnesium deficient, green oxygen deficient, our bodies will look for it wherever it's lacking. So now it's being pulled from different areas. And now, and think about the compound effect. People think age, oh, I'm feeling my age. I've got patients that are 88 years old that are more active than you and I put together, Mark. It's a big fallacy of age. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I have my patients tell me all the time, I'm looking younger every time they see me. I have patients looking and feeling younger because we're actually giving their body what they need, the exercise that complements that individual, because everything isn't for everyone, but there's always something for someone.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with historic figure Edgar Cayce?
Yes, love Edgar Cayce. Those books were in my home growing up.
What was the last part? Say that again.
Those books, his books, Edgar Cayce's books, was in my home growing up.
Very good. I most recently lived in Kentucky, so
Okay.
I discovered him. He was from southern Kentucky, around Bowling Green, Kentucky, and went to his center, ARE in Virginia Beach, and just found him fascinating.
Yes.
For the audience, he probably the best book about him is called The Sleeping Prophet, and he would go into a trance and be asleep,
Yes.
and diagnose physical ailments, but he solved crimes, and he could do it from afar. So he had an assistant who would read a letter, and he died in the early to mid 1900s. But anyway, he could diagnose illnesses, and he brought Chinese Eastern medical techniques to the West when there was no knowledge of them. So a lot of holistic types of remedies, apothecary sorts of herbs and things combined, magnets and power of magnets. He really did a lot of groundbreaking work. So if you're to the audience, if you're into holistic healing, and you can even go to his center in Virginia Beach, and they have copies of the readings that he did, and they still help people with those readings. I just found it totally fascinating.
Edgar Cayce's mind was far advanced, most definitely. Someone that is living in this day, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him as of yet. Definitely check him out. He's a neuroscientist, a physicist, and is breaking ways. We now are proving, I mean, through their meditations, through their workshops, they've had people with 22 brain tumors and the tumors are gone. They've had blind people see, deaf people hear. I mean, it's profound, and tests to prove it. Scientists come from all across the globe to see the proof and the data and these thermography machines, and it's profound.
Say his name again, and what's the book?
Dr. Joe Dispenza. His first book was Breaking the Habit of Becoming Yourself. And I want to say he just released a new one. I want to say Supernatural You. That might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But if you type in Dr. Joe Dispenza, you will find a plethora of information.
And we'll put some notes and links to some books there. In the show notes. So what are you seeing mostly with do you refer to your folks as patients, clients? Well, how do you refer to them? Victims?
Um, yes, patients. Patients for the medical massage practitioner part and clients for the personal training rehabilitation. It really, title doesn't mean too much. We just focus on, but yeah, I would say we use the word patients more consistently just because we do the medical aspect.
Sure. So let's do a couple of case studies. You talked a little bit about it, but talk about some of the presenting problems and how you address it, just to give people an idea of your approach
Sure.
and to give some concrete examples here.
Most definitely. So that's usually everyone's that's first ask, right? Is what's your specialty? And we are the people that get referred to when people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're like, okay, well, I've tried everything. Go see Elyse. Let's see what she can do. Let's see what her and her girls can do. And just for an example, a gentleman that was referred to us probably about 6 months ago. It took 3 months just to get him in because we have a long wait list and there are some fluctuations with scheduling. However, he had severe neck pain. So, but as soon as I saw him, I saw the rounded shoulders and the postural distortions. That's the visual. Now, his complaints were severe neck pain, bilateral, so both elbows, pain, and nerve impingements. He had already had a disc replacement in his C spine, so he had a cadaver disc in C3, C4, and his goal was just less pain, just whatever, because he had been in this pain for over 15 years. And the surgery was recent. He had a car accident in February that aggravated a lot of old ailments. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to have him move and let me see his range of motion. Range of motion was very restricted. I mean, could barely even give me a 45-degree on his shoulder. And so then I'm going to make the decision of, okay, are we going to do more manual work or am I going to bring in the device? I use a microcurrent stimulation device. It's called MPS. It actually takes, so I love that you're familiar with traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, because it takes traditional Chinese acupuncture points and Eastern neurology and German dental and combines it into a device. So I use this device to help reprogram nerves, send out, and it actually is proven to help reduce pain naturally, aid in a lot of those issues. So that happened first. And then we get into the manual. So we'll open up the neck and the shoulder areas, see where all these restrictions are, open up the physiology. And especially with individuals that have had pain for 5 years, 10 years, those tissues are traumatized. It gets stuck together. It's almost like glue internally. If you ever heard of frozen shoulder syndrome, a lot of people have heard of that. It's very familiar. It's basically where the capsule is glued together. So this happens a lot. That's not the only condition that it happens. It happens all the time. And a majority of people's aches and pains are where we get stuck and sticky on the inside from our repetitive stress, from our jobs, from the alcohol that's being consumed, and all that uric acid is, combining and degenerating your spine. A lot of arthritises are caused from a lot of over drinking. A lot of people may not like me saying that. It's very true, though. So this particular patient, been about 6 months, and he had messaged me last week, and he said, I just want to thank you. And I was like, well, for what? And he was like, I had 3 surgeons tell me that I'm going to have full elbow reconstructions on both of my elbows because there's just no fixing my nerve impingements and my pain. And I've been working with you for less than 6 months and I have no pain. He says, Saturday, sends me a message and says, I'm on the ninth hole and I have no pain. Like this gentleman couldn't play golf. This gentleman couldn't live his life because of the pain that he was in. And he refused to take the medications that he was being prescribed because he didn't want to have his brain affected. He does a lot of different entrepreneurial businesses and he needs his mind in tip-top shape. So he decided to live with the pain. Now, mind you, we do have him on some nutritional supplementation. Molecular hydrogen is phenomenal for natural anti-inflammatory. It's not going to hurt the gut lining. It actually helps aid in building up cellular structure. So as of now, he has no pain and he does his exercises. We see him weekly. And we're now reposturing and restructuring to get that axial skeleton open. But as of now, the complaints, there's no pain, there's no more nerve impingement.
Interesting. How much of our chronic pain is due to lifestyle issues? For example, just posture. If we're working at a computer much of the day, our walking posture, I'm always trying to catch myself, especially keeping the spine aligned and shoulders up. How impactful is that long term?
75 to 80, 85%. And that's on a low scale because and this again, we can even get into physiology and emotions, right? So if you look at someone and they're like this, what do you automatically think? Sad, depressed, lonely, what have you, right? And if you look at someone and their shoulders are back and their chin is up and they're holding themselves with a posture, you're going to have a different feeling, right? That's going to come to you. So as we're working on our computers and some of our people work 3 screens, 5 screens nowadays, that you're not only is your body and your physiology on the repetition, right? So those muscles now and that stimuli that your nervous system is receiving is now being programmed because we are a program. Our nervous system is electricity and we are programs. And our neural pathways can be refired and rewired and retrained. But the neural pathways that we are doing all day, every day with our repetitive stress, with our work, with our day-to-day tasks, that's our program. And that's what our tissues and muscles will do. So that is a majority. That is where all of our issues come from. Not to mention if we get into like the psychosocial, psychological, trauma, all of those, there's many, many layers, Mark. We could do many of these.
I'm fascinated. I'm going to shift into technology,
okay.
And AI. And I am fascinated by this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to as much as I can about it. And the way I'd like to frame it in our discussion is that recently I heard that these major AI models, ChatGPT, that they have scoured the entire internet. So they have knowledge in them that is as much as we have absorbed or recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Have you played around with some, especially like ChatGPT, to prompt it to give you diagnoses? And I think that we're going to have some tremendous breakthroughs on diagnoses, being able to feed data, MRI data, all sorts of data into these models and have them see things that would previously be undiagnosed. Have you tried some of these models, not plugging in volumes of data, but just giving some of the major symptoms of a patient and asking, and the way you ask the question is so important, to get holistic approaches. Have you played with it yet? in regards to your patient?
I have not, Mark. I have not played with it, only because with our profession, and when I'm one-on-one with a patient and we do their intake form and we go in, what their complaints may be, what their body is telling me, and what I will find, a lot of the times may be very different. So if someone is having, just for example, if someone is having, okay, I had a patient come in, they had severe sciatica. I mean, severe so much as they were vomiting, like their vagus nerve was that upregulated. So if you, with software, because that is how our medications and how our regular primary care physicians and everything is structured. You type in the symptoms, you type in what the pain and other ailments that are happening. And depending on their insurance, the physician gets what prescription to prescribe. You know, there's no innovation there. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's an insurance thing. And from what I've seen in my 13 years of practicing and over 46,000 hours of hands-on patients, is there are a lot of hidden nooks and crannies that are not in textbooks. And if you, people are misdiagnosed all the time. And if we're not looking at root causes and we're only looking at what's in a textbook, we're not going to get that far for longevity and vitality, because it's not in textbooks. That's why I'm writing a curriculum right now.
Yeah. And it could be, you know, it could be grieving, long-term grieving for the loss of a loved one.
Yes.
Could and could be causing chronic pain. So
I love that you said that. Actually have a patient, Mark, and severe drop foot. I mean, has been to the top neurologists, the top endocrinologists, the top surgeons. And when we do talk therapies, he gets much more results than with any other therapy, any other medication that they've given. And this is a severe drop foot neurological impingement. So I love that you said that and you recognize that, because people are not aware.
yeah, we're very complex, but I don't know. Maybe there will, you know, if the range of modalities, EMDR, acupuncture, all these modalities are part of the data set,
Yes.
then, and they are there,
Sure.
you know, it may be in Chinese, but they're there. So I don't know. And I can tend to put too much trust in technology, but I am amazed at some of the things that I've seen and been able to do. So I just wondered if you had done it.
No, that's beautiful. And that doesn't mean that I can't go and try and have phenomenal results, because we don't know what we don't know. And if we haven't experienced it, we don't know.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with inputs. So if you input the data that you see and that you intuit, because a lot of what you're doing is sensing to get to the bottom of what their issues truly are.
Yes.
So maybe you can input enough data to give you some suggested protocols that don't necessarily lead to drugs. So, of
course. Yeah, no, we're definitely against drugs. We are pro nutrition, we're pro diet, we're pro food, we're pro supplements that are clean, supplements that don't have fillers, supplements that are not going to harm your body in the long term, and community, vacationing, taking trips, being able to spend time with your loved ones, going and walking on the beach for 20 minutes. We've written scripts for patients to go and take a walk, on the beach, to go and have a breath with their husband or wife. And, you know, there's just many practices that little changes add up to very big results.
speaking of supplements, I watch a lot of podcasts since I do one, but I see AG1 athletic greens advertised a lot. Do you have any familiarity with it? It sounds pretty comprehensive. It also sounds very expensive. Just I haven't looked into it.
So I am familiar with AG1s. However, I am a bit biased because the brand that I use is developed and formulated by a physician. So I absolutely love that there are a lot of mainstream, but unfortunately, when you get higher up in the mainstream products, you have what we call a lot of fillers. And or those farms have had pesticides because they're not super USDA organic or non-GMO. Or they also have some type of gluten, because if you do not harvest the wheat barley grass and the grasses at a very specific time, people that have gluten intolerances and gluten issues will have a negative effect to those supplementations. So the allergy responses, the cleanliness of the products is by far what we are honed in on. But AG1s, a lot of people love it. But I do get, once a few months are used in, there's reactions that are happening, because when you get something that's produced on such a large scale and it's not maintained for the cleanliness and the efficacy, then we get a lot of snake oils running around.
Mhm. As we're starting to wrap up here, why don't you give your 4 best tips for longevity, health, wellness, and then share how people can contact you.
Thank
4
you, Mark.
tips.
That
4 of
tips.
your best tips.
You're putting me on the spot, Mark. Best 4 tips? Well, there's a difference between 4 and what 4 people may do, right? So I'll go with what is more user friendly and what would be more apt to apply. Very first one is breathe in gratitude. Let's stop forgetting our breath. And I say this first and foremost because I was that person that was constantly go, go, go. I'm still go, 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 but now I just find how to breathe. So tip 1, focus on your breath. Find a breathing pattern. Get into breathing habits. You can control your nervous system, your regulation, your blood pressure regulation. We have so much power with our breath. So find a breathing practice would be my number 1. Number 2 is maintain a sleep cycle. Make sure that you're sleeping your hours and you're getting some REM sleep. Don't eat 2 to 4 hours before you go to bed. It's just not a good idea.
Or exercise right before you go to bed.
Exactly.
My body, if I exercise too late, my body keeps working. It won't slow down.
You release all those endorphins.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So the 2 is sleep quality. We've literally had people lose weight just by changing their sleeping habits. We have a supplementation that's called Booster, and it's an alkaline cell salt. Just by adding 4 of those caps before they go to bed, it's a game changer on the sleep, the quality, and aiding in that alkalinity of the body. My third one would definitely be exercise. Find a way to move your body. Find a way to reverse, number 1, reverse your repetitive stresses. The work that you
say
do,
it again.
Reverse your repetitive stresses. So we all have RSIs, repetitive stress injuries. And you were speaking of it with posture and with computers and with desk working and even with laborers. Everybody has a repetitive stress. And if you look at your body and your physiology, where you're at, and you reverse it on a regular basis, you're going to help reverse your repetitive stress. So that would be my number 3, is find your movement, reverse your repetitive stress. Number 4, I would definitely say
Diet.
We went into breath, sleep, exercise. Yes, diet. We don't understand how powerful what we eat really is. we are made of what we eat and drink. And we are living in a very toxic environment. So if we do not put in the fruits that are natural detoxifiers and tissue cleansers and DNA helpers, if you will, right? The nuts that are healthy fats, the omega-3s, all these things, the proteins, the clean whole foods, right? Check out intermittent fasting, but diet would definitely be those four. If you can get those four and make little changes with those four, I guarantee you any individual will see positive results pretty rapidly in their life. A lot of people say that conventional medicines and functional medicines, you don't get that impulse response, right? You don't get a quick fix. And that's very misleading because we get quick fixes and quick responses all of the time. I mean, people that have had sleeping issues or eating issues. I mean, just as you were speaking, narcotic issues where people have been addicted to those pain medications. And this is all working closely with physicians, right? With their physicians. And now these individuals have regular sleep cycles and they can go to the bathroom regularly because those narcotics are not affecting their body. And now they're not having to take another medication to actually make them go to the bathroom. So yes, those four will help in immense of ways.
Elyse, thank you so much. Give us the ways that you can be contacted. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Best way is always our line at the office. If you go to nerdbodyworks.com, you can send a direct email, call the office, or even my cell is on there. We're always available. If we do not respond within a good amount of time, call again.
Great. So, Elyse, thanks so much for joining me today on the Outmarket.pro podcast to talk about MassageNERD and all the range of experiences that we've talked about in the health and wellness industry. Please see Elyse's contact down in the show notes, information in the show notes below. And to find out more about us at Outmarket.pro, you can also find it in the show notes and a link to our website. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to catch future episodes. And feel free to leave your comments below. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.